Hello and welcome to Leap of Faith Life. I'm Azahar and today we're going to be talking about some tips and tricks for getting around Hawaii. Now, I know that there are a lot of islands in the state of Hawaii, very different from the next. You are in the right spot if you want some tips and tricks to visit in general the areas of Hawaii, any of the islands there. General tips that are going to help you out to have a really great time. Now, the number one tip that I have for you is to rent a car. Now, they do have a lot of car ride sharing areas, and there are places to take buses and things like that, but I will say that there are some pretty inexpensive, especially if you're booking ahead of time. Up until last minute, it tends to get a little bit dicey in the pricing, so as far in advance as you can book, the better. I probably booked mine about a couple weeks before, and actually a couple of them I did a few days before, and it still ended up being okay in price. I would recommend getting a Jeep if you do want to go off-roading just a tiny little bit. Otherwise, any of the compact economy cars are going to be fine. Now, I will say one tip is it's going to be tempting to want to get one of the Jeeps with the fabric back seats where you can just roll it up and take it off and have an open air back seat. But if you are going to be parking a lot at some remote locations or some of the more popular beaches in the North Shore, for example, it would be better to get a car that you can lock that has the hard backing. From my example rather, I was traveling in between Airbnbs or wherever I was staying, and I needed to have all my stuff, so that included really expensive camera equipment and my passport, things like that. That was not great if someone could just lift that flap and get right in. They do have a little bit of car theft in the area just because it is such a high tourist destination. A lot of different sites and a lot of different locals that I talk to recommend making sure that you lock things up, hide things out of sight so it's not tempting to want to get into your vehicle. 3 things to pack for you. I would recommend sneakers. Now, you want to wear flip-flops a lot of the time, but they've got such great hikes all over the islands in Hawaii. And even if you're not an avid hiker, they have things that are pretty easy to get up to, and everything to really complex, intense day hikes, week hikes, that type of thing. The views are so worth it though. Even if you're not an avid hiker, I would recommend you try at least one of them out to see how it is. So bring some socks and sneakers that you feel like you can get a little bit dirty, and you will not regret it. Another thing to pack will be layers. It's really important that a lot of, like in a hotter climate, they're going to have a lot of air conditioning, and especially if you are going to be traveling by bus or anything like that, that it's going to get really quite cold, and you're going to be naturally wearing your shorts, tank tops, that kind of thing. So it's nice to have a scarf, a sweatshirt, some pants to add in if you are going to be staying for a while. Or even just if you're going to be in the hotel room, sometimes it's hard to control the temperature. And that's things that I typically tend to forget. Especially, it'll be a longer flight depending on where you're coming from. And because it is that island, it's going to be flying across the ocean. So it's nice to have the longer socks. Like, I like to take my shoes off during longer flights, and it's good to have a comfy pair of socks, thick wool socks or the like, to wear during the flight. Snorkeling is a huge thing all across the islands in Hawaii, and a lot of times it can be quite expensive to rent, and not necessarily for one visit, but if you want to do it a few different times, or if you're in a remoter location, it's really hard to find places to rent, or they can hike up the prices if you're going to be staying somewhere where it's again a high tourist area. So I would alleviate that by at least bringing a snorkel mask and the breathing thing. I should know what that's called, but you know what I'm saying. Bring the mask, this thing. Bring that, because that in and of itself will be enough. Even if you don't have the flippers, sometimes if you're in like a really active ocean area, you don't even need the flippers, or a smaller area that you're looking through. You can at least have something where you're able to observe the fish and everything like that, and not need to rent the mask. If you know you're going to be doing a lot of snorkeling, and that you know that you're really that's going to be a huge part of your trip, I would definitely recommend bringing flippers, even though it might take up a lot of room in your suitcase. It will be worth it if you're going to be doing it a lot. So great idea to bring ahead of time. the food. Oh my gosh. So I enjoy seafood immensely, and you don't have to enjoy seafood to enjoy the food in Hawaii, but all that saying, it is a bunch of islands in the middle of the ocean, duh. So seafood, oh my gosh. Poke bowls, if you have not had a poke bowl and you like seafood, please, please, please try all of the different options out. My favorite is a classic tuna, and whatever type of mix the place has. Bring it into, maybe garlic and some soy sauce, something really simple, mixing up the ahi there, and then they put anything from, cucumbers and over a bed of rice and, any other type of little vegetables. It depends on where you're getting it from. Usually it's very simple if it's a traditional Hawaiian poke bowl. So, so, so delicious. Now, shrimp is a huge thing across the islands. And there are a lot of really famous food trucks. Anywhere that you can go to get shrimp, especially in the side trucks on the North Shore, are going to be amazing and delicious and the best experience of your life. They tend to be really simple, sauteed in garlic and butter, and so magical, and all of your hopes and dreams will be met for sure. Acai bowls, fruit bowls made out of the acai fruit and having lots of fresh fruit on the top, sometimes honey. Oh my goodness, please, please, please do yourself a favor and try these out. I did a thing where anywhere I stopped, for breakfast, I would get an acai bowl, I would get snow cone, and then I'd get some type of seafood, comparing where I thought was the best places to go. Now, you can look up places ahead of time and find the places, check them off your list, that type of thing, but it's so fun to find out the best bowl, your best flavor of bowl, and having that for breakfast. Definitely try it out if you haven't before. Snow cones are an art, and they are not called snow cones on the island. It is shave ice. Not shaved ice, shave ice. Please do another adventure of going around and finding your favorite type of shave ice on the island. There are tons of different spots. I went to here. And of course, it's one of the more popular tourist locations, but it is one of the, if you say shave ice, that's the spot on, especially Oahu. But do yourself a favor, go around, try out the different types and flavors. You cannot go wrong. I remember I sat in the sunlight and ate my bowl of shave ice, and it was probably the best moment of my entire trip, just that moment in the sun with my sugar bowl. 7-Eleven surprisingly has amazing seafood snacks, and a lot of them are the local type of fare that is really popular. So seafood wrapped in seaweed and rice, and there's lots of different takes on that. But I actually liked and loved going and trying out some of the Spam versions, knowing that Hawaii is famous for their Spam and their various different ways of making it, but also the different local mixes. It's great to try out what's on the menu. It's really important to note that you shouldn't take the seashells or the lava rocks from the island. There even is a superstition around taking the lava rock from the island and having bad luck if you take that back to your home space. There's actually a space where they take back the lava rock, so people will send it back in the mail, and they've got a space where all these people have sent back hordes and hordes of it because they say, I've got bad luck, I didn't know this was a thing, and now I have this bad luck, and please take the rock back, I don't want it. It's best to leave it there so that future generations can observe and also to respect the locals. I would definitely recommend getting your space, wherever it's going to be, in a hotel or an Airbnb, getting it way ahead of time. Things are very expensive on the island compared to the mainland in the United States. Not knowing, wherever you're coming from, it just tends to be a little bit higher price because it is an island. The space is going to be limited, and there's lots of hotels that book up very quickly. So I chose an Airbnb and a lot of my stays, and that was a great choice. Now, I tend to like to book things a little last minute, usually a few days before or the day of sometimes, and it still worked out, and it was still good prices, but you do have to do a little bit of digging. Now, I stayed in on the Big Island. I stayed in the state park for the Volcano State Park, and the Airbnb was so beautiful. It was in the middle of a jungle. I had a little porch area that the owner left me a little bit of fudge, and I had coffee on the porch in the morning in the jungle, and it was just such a perfect experience. So I would recommend the Airbnbs, knowing that you're going to get some tips and tricks from the owner, and you also might have a more unique experience in the meantime, going into the different neighborhoods and things like that. I would recommend packing also a hiking backpack if you are going to go hiking. It tends to help out a lot to have lots of different pockets and things to be able to store your camera and water, especially if you're going to go to, for example, Volcanoes National Park. That's a really intense hike if you're wanting to see the lava flow, if it's happening right now, knowing that it tends to, depending on, you know, how intense it's been whenever you're watching this. But for when I went, it was before a lot of the lava flow went into homes and really took damage through communities and things. But at the time that I was there, you could hike out to the lava. Friends were there a year before, and you could hike, you know, only a little while until you saw the lava flow. But for when I was there, it was, you had to hike actually like a good 6 hours in and across really desolate landscape. So making sure that you're prepared ahead of time. I would also bring water wherever you're going, since you are going to be renting a car. To be following this advice, having a big thing of water in the car to refill a smaller bottle is going to really be key, and having a few snacks as well, but knowing that there's lots of different spaces to buy food on food truck stands and things like that, and you're going to want to have the space in your belly to do that, but know that having water is going to be really key. There is so much intense history on the islands of Hawaii, and there's a lot of varying viewpoints, and it's just good to be respectful of the people that have, the indigenous people of Hawaii that have lived there for thousands of years, respectful of the customs, respectful of the history. So do a little bit of research. I'll leave some good links below. But it's fun sometimes to visit the national, they've got a lot of good museums now dedicated to either the indigenous work or the history of the islands before the occupation of the United States. But just know that there are some topics that are really sensitive to the Hawaiian people. So a lot of times too, you'll see signs like on the North Shore to keep the North Shore small, and it's a 2-lane highway that goes through there, and there's a lot of hotels that are wanting to build up in the area, of course, because it's such a high tourist area. But knowing that that's also going to completely ruin all of the plant life, the communities there, it's going to take away from what that history has been. So just knowing that that's just one example of, you know, making sure that you're a little bit versed in what's happening in the community, and knowing that you're being respectful of things that you're saying, areas that you're visiting, being in nature, knowing a little bit of the history and background is really important to respect and honor the people that have come before you. Make sure that you know where to go early ahead of time. A lot of the beaches, it's good to get, I am not a morning person, but to get there before sunrise, watch the sunrise on the water, then go get a cup of coffee, come back, lay out on the beach, take lots of pictures, and spend, you know, a good morning there. That type of thing. It's really hard to get certain parking spots. If you're on example for Oahu on the wayward side, there's lots of heavy traffic up on the North Shore. So just doing things off peak hours, so maybe you're going a little bit later in the day up the North Shore, maybe you're going very early in the morning, just knowing that it's an island and there's going to be a lot of traffic in those high population, high tourist areas. And my last tip is to just enjoy and marvel at the beauty that is Hawaii. There's such a deep, rich, beautiful history. It's worlds apart from anywhere that I've ever been. I've been to, at this point in time, 33 countries, and I was so in awe of this space. So have an amazing, wonderful trip. If you've got questions, please leave them down below for the community, or reach out to me on Instagram, Leap of Faith Life. Please have a wonderful adventure, and until next time, bye.